Hey folks, Eric Smith here, radio voice of the Toronto Raptors, NBA host and analyst with Sportsnet. I want to shout out my man Chris and 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Even though I know, Chris, you're not a Toronto sports guy, you've got those allegiances to the Detroit, Windsor area, the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Tigers, and for some reason the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm still trying to figure that one out, Chris. Why'd you drop the Lions? Why'd you drop the Lions, Chris? There's got to be a reason there. We'll have to fill everybody in on that another time, I suppose. But again, check out 30 Minutes Live with CDP every Wednesday and Friday. It's on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Live, you name it. Chris is everywhere across all platforms. And if you just want to check out the audio version, maybe you're going out for a walk and you just want a podcast or something, you can get it on Apple, Google Podcasts as well, Spotify, Anchor FM, and Radio Public. So again, I told you, Chris is everywhere. And I'm hoping that I can be a guest on the show at some point this summer as well. Wednesdays and Fridays, 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Check it out.
Anyways, thank you to Eric Smith, the radio voice play-by-play announcer of the Toronto Raptors, for doing that intro for me. I really appreciate it. Anyways, guys, welcome to Saturday night special, 30 Minutes Live with CDP with my co-host Aaron Sanders, who I'll bring on here in a minute. And we're going to preview, it was supposed to be called the NBA Final Four, but there's still 6 teams left. So we still got the Western Conference Finals been determined. Phoenix and the Clippers start game 1 tomorrow. And then tonight we've got game 7 of the Nets and Sixers. The Nets and Bucks, pardon me. And then Sunday night we have the Hawks and the Sixers in game 7. So the Eastern Conference Final is still to be determined. And we'll know by late Sunday night which 2 teams will be in the Eastern Finals. So I'm looking forward to the game tonight with the Bucks and Nets. It's in the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and we'll see what happens there. It's a toss-up. 80% of the home teams usually win Game 7, but nowadays you never know, so I wouldn't count out the Bucks yet. So give me one second, guys, and I'm going to bring on my co-host on here. I want to say thank you to Aaron for coming on here tonight. I really appreciate him coming on, and there he is. Hey, Aaron, how are you?
Hi, Chris, and hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here once again, and we're talking about the NBA Final Six for the moment. We'll be reduced to 4 in the next 48 hours, for sure.
Definitely. Did you watch the games last night by any chance?
Yeah, I was able to catch the games last night and some highlights, too, and I could not believe what happened, especially for the Clippers. For the first time in franchise history, they are off to the Western Conference Finals, and you have to go all the way back to their days in Buffalo in the 70s to see how long it's been since they did this. This is the first time they did it in franchise history. They would usually get over the hump in the second round.
Yeah.
And stop there. But they went on. They got 8 more wins to go to capture the championship. So it's amazing how this playoff season is turning out to be.
I was going to say the turning point in that game, in my opinion, Aaron, was the third quarter when the defense started making stops, and then they started getting easy baskets, and they started getting offense, and everybody got involved in it. Like Paul George was a leader last night. Patrick Beverley came through. Terrence Mann had 39 points, which is the most he's ever scored. And everybody, Reggie Jackson, the former Piston, contributed. It was a team effort last night, and to me, it started with their defense when they started making some defensive stops and then getting some points, and then the fans started getting into it. I wonder how different it would have been last year when there was no fans, because those fans last night for the Clippers did make a difference when they started making their run. I think they at one point, Aaron, had a 17-0 run in the third quarter.
Well, the fans played a huge difference. That's why the 6-man is very important. But it's like the old adage: you win championships with defense. But if your transition game is on pat too, then you're going to be intimidating to any opponents right there. And to be honest with you, I didn't expect Utah, just to end their run just like that, because I thought for a second there they were just going to, wrap up the series, especially the beginning of the week. But you know what? Stranger things have happened. We've seen a lot of injuries. We've seen a lot of game changers, and we've seen great players step up. So if you didn't know them now, you didn't know them then, you're going to know them now. And that 39-point performance, icing on the cake.
And like I said, they played like a team. Nothing against Kawhi Leonard, but maybe this Clippers team is finally learning to play as a team because I think Leonard's not going to be back anytime soon, and Serge Ibaka is out for the year. And I think they've had to learn, hey, we got to step it up. Paul George, Patrick Beverley, Terrence Mann, Reggie Jackson, etc. That if we want to continue, we're going to have to step it up and play. And I found before with Kawhi Leonard, he's a great player, he's a Hall of Famer, is they sometimes relied too much on him to do everything. And I think right now they have the moment. To me, they have the momentum going in against the very good Phoenix Suns team, who could very well be without Chris Paul for the first couple of games. I believe he's in COVID protocols right now.
Yes, unfortunately, he is in COVID protocol. And you know what? He was just, no pun intended, he was just the phoenix that rose for the Suns in that clincher game against Denver. Like, I could not believe it. It felt like we were seeing Chris Paul of the New Orleans Hornets when he came into the NBA. He just took care of business. He's the kind of guy that you would love to take care of business with. He went down to the basket, got the tough and ones. He was able to move the ball around for them too. It feels like things got much better with Chris Paul, in the lineup. But now with him, being on the protocols for at least the first couple of games, it's now time for the Suns and the other young folks out there to step up and do what they got to do. You got DeAndre Ayton, who I said a few years ago when he got drafted that he was going to be one of the top stars in the NBA. Still got a few years, but he's getting the playoff experience. And then, of course, you got Devin Booker. Boy, oh boy, what more can you say about Devin Booker and all the other players in for the Phoenix Suns? So if you have to look at Phoenix versus the Clippers, I see that the Clippers got the advantage, of the height. But the Suns, I think they got the speed too. But the question is, do they have enough speed to catch up with the Clippers in the full court game? That's what I want to know.
Well, and like I said, I really think the Clippers have the momentum right now, just because the Suns haven't played in a week, and sometimes too much time off is not good either. I know teams like to have a couple days off or whatever in between series, but I think when you've had over a week off, it can also hurt a team as well.
And on top of that, usually the only time the rest would work out for a team is like for the veteran players. But with these young guys, it's like they phase off easily, like they lose control. So I agree with you with that. So it's going to be a matter of who could shake the rust off real quick and step up for Phoenix, because for the Clippers, they don't have rest at all. They start playing tomorrow afternoon. So yeah. they're going to be well alert mentally, and they're going to be chomping at the bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how their mentality, plays in the next 24 hours.
Now, is Phoenix at full capacity for crowds?
It looks to be that they are at full capacity. Almost every team in the NBA has some sort of capacity in there. So if home court advantage really becomes a factor in the next two rounds, then you could best believe that you're going to be looking at the teams with the best home court advantage. Phoenix, obviously, because they got a top seed, and LA, obviously, because they're LA. If it isn't the Clippers, it's the Lakers. If it isn't the Lakers, it's the Clippers. So either way, you're going to see a whole lot of fans in there seeing how far their teams could go before winning their very first championship.
Okay.
Maybe.
Before we go on, can I just show a little bit of highlights from the comeback from last night between the Clippers and I forgot Utah? Is that okay? Just give me a second and I'll put it on just for a couple minutes, just so my audience, if they didn't see the game last night.
We're going to have to start calling him Donovan Mitchell range. He's hit a lot along.
Can you hear that okay?
And stolen by Gobert.
Yes, I can.
Who turns it right back over. And Paul George, an easy bucket. I don't need the body language as somebody's committing a foul by you. Leaning back in your chair, frowning.
To me, like you said, the rebounding and the defensive end really made a difference.
Trying to get out of trouble.
And there's that transition game, which makes a huge difference. And plus the ability to finish. He stops in his steps, waited for the opponent to come in, and just took the contact like a pro.
Definitely.
He's got 21 points.
And the crowd helped too. The crowd did make a factor.
Kept alive, picked up by Morris. Ahead
they
to
wanted
Jackson.
Something big to happen, and they got it last night.
But Jackson, beautiful scoop up and under shot.
I mean, look at these young players up on the court. You see how mobile and agile they are. They're able to finish the hoop with no problem.
Man with the most points he scored in his brief professional career.
Wide open look from a great three-point shooter.
Reggie Jackson races up the floor. Terrence Mann wide open for three. Puts it in. Terrence Mann has 29. It's a 12-point game. Kicks it out. Clarkson tries to stay hot. Not that time. Mann the rebound. Mann drives. Mann finishes. 31. The lead cut to 10. A solid offensive player. This is more than solid. This is spectacular. Jackson on the drive. Kicks it out for Mann. Mann three-pointer. Bang! Oh, what a man! And a new 14 on the shot clock, nearly thrown away. Yes, it is. Beverly has it. Beverly to George. George up and under. Missed the layup. Beverly back out. Jackson for three. Bang! 2-point game.
Reggie Jackson played great last night for the Clippers.
Reggie Jackson.
That's the way he was with Detroit.
He picked
When
his
he
spots
Jackson
too,
for
and
three.
it's all
Got
because
it.
of great ball
The
movement.
three-point madness
Especially that
continues.
play.
And it's back to a three-point
Definitely agree
game.
with you on that.
Jackson on the drive. Mitchell behind him. Nick Batum connects on a three. Tie game. Reggie Jackson calling for a screen. Now drives, step back, drives again. Gets underneath, layup, banks it home. The Clippers have the lead.
Now, that's tough.
That's why they don't want Kennard in when Mitchell's in.
Beverly, even Beverly getting into the act. Another lead change. Paul George, a three-pointer. That's good. 21 for George. Clippers by 3. Jackson guarded by Mitchell. Drives, stops, pulls up, throws it up and in. 4-point lead. George on the drive against O'Neal. Batum for 3. Got it! George guarded by Clarkson. Rises up high. Arcing shot is good. 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists for Paul George. Paul George, 3. Rebound Jackson. Beautiful pass, and Mann lays it in. Timeout Utah. Paul George with Mitchell on him. Gobert lurking. Step back, 2-pointer. It's good. George to drive. Back out Batum. Terrence Mann for 3. Bang! Terrence Mann is unstoppable. George to drive. Gets inside on Conley. Conley tried to take it away. Throws it up and in.
They want to get Paul George being defended by Conley.
Jackson to the basket, off the glass, right at the Defensive Player of the Year.
So this was a tremendous response in the second half.
Jackson to Beverly. Beverly tries a 3-pointer. Beverly from downtown. Jackson's got O'Neal on him. Neal, an excellent defender. Jackson, though, on the drive, gets inside. Again, high off the glass. He banks it home. George on the drive, back up top. Beverly tries a 3. Puts it in! Patrick Beverly! It's a 10-point lead.
Anyways, that I just wanted to show those highlights because, like I said, it started on the defensive end on the glass, and then the transition game, and then Reggie Jackson played perfectly, and then Patrick Beverly hit some nice shots, and they got contributions from a lot of guys. But Paul George, the last couple games, has shown that he can produce in the playoffs because he's had a reputation. Sorry.
No, he's been there before, especially with Indiana a few years ago, and he was the guy that, you know, you give the ball to and he could take care of business. But now with the Clippers, we see him taking, you know, a much lighter role, but it doesn't mean he's not producing as much. On top of that, too, you got to admire the half-court offense from the Clippers, especially from that quarter alone. Just great ball movement. They were taking big-time risks. Like, for example, we saw one player just dribbling and tight-roping on the sideline to try to get all the way to the hoop. And instead, you know, there are a couple of times where you see they would go and kick out for the extra pass. So, you know what, the passes work out, you spread out the defense, and it gives you the ability to shoot. And again, a lot of people are surprised that the Clippers were on fire, especially down the stretch with those corner threes.
I was gonna say, and the fans do make a difference, and those fans in that second half, they really helped the team too.
Oh, absolutely. The six man is back in the NBA. It's back in full swing because it was very, different for the last year and a half too. You started off in the bubble last summer, which was a big difference maker when, of course, the Lakers won the championship. And now a year later, here we are, the start of the playoffs, getting the news that the fans are allowed to go back into the arenas, and they're paying huge dividends to how their team is performing down the stretch.
I was saying, I know the Western Final starts tomorrow, 3:30 at 1 o'clock. Not much of a turnaround for the Clippers. Thankfully, it's not that far from LA to Phoenix, so it's only probably a couple-hour flight to Phoenix. So, but I was going to say the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't believe will start until Wednesday night.
Mm-hmm.
Game one.
Well, it comes down to four teams. Obviously, tonight you got the Bucks and the Nets. It could go either way, honestly, because everyone would keep on saying, the Nets are going to take care of business. But remember, the Bucks, they have a very dynamic team. Giannis, for example, Chris Middleton, and the rest. They also promote great ball movement along the way too, but they're one of the few teams that also would give it to their star player down the stretch, and that is Giannis most of the times. But there are other players, especially off the bench, they come in and they perform and they do the best they can because it isn't a one-man show. This is a team effort. But by the end of tonight, one of these teams are going to move on and be a part of a big Eastern Conference Finals. And, of course, we got the Sixers and the Hawks tomorrow night as well.
I was going to say, I just wonder how much James Harden has in the tank because Durant, he's going to show up tonight. But Harden, I think, to me, is going to be a key factor as well. If he can even get 15, 20 points and be a little bit of a factor. I know he's not 100%. And losing Kyrie Irving to the ankle sprain, I believe in game one kind of hurt them too. Now, another key I wanted to ask you about, Aaron, the coaching. I'm not a big fan of the Bucks coach, and I think Steve Nash is Hall of Fame ball player. I think he's a very good coach. Don't you think the Nets going into this game today might have a slight edge with the coaching as well?
Absolutely, because Steve Nash knows every nook and cranny when it comes down to the NBA and when it comes down to the playoffs as well. Originally, when he signed up to be a part of the Brooklyn Nets, I thought this was going to be a guard-oriented team. Lo and behold, in a way, it is. The way Durant is playing, he's a big man putting on those little moves and just putting up big figures at the end of the day. There's no question about it. Kyrie Irving, we don't need to say much more about how he performs regardless of the injury. And James Harden, usually I would have a bone to pick with James Harden, but to tell you the truth, the fact that he came out of his injury and scored 16 points, that's pretty good. And I always saw basketball as this. If you come back from an injury, if you score more than 15 points in your first couple of games, then you're slowly but surely getting back, and it's a good performance. So if you ask me, Steve Nash is doing a terrific job, keeping the Nets, guard-oriented, and also in terms of speed and just shooting the shots. Milwaukee on the other end, I still see them as like a big man team. And this is ironic coming from a guy that loves to see the big man perform in the NBA, but Mike Budenholzer has to find some way to get the backcourt involved, because if the Nets go on a three-point spree, it may be over. Who's going to guard them with the fast ball movement and the great strategy?
I was going to say, I think tonight a good start is going to be key for both clubs. You don't want to fall behind. 10 points is not bad, but you don't want to get into 15, 20, 25, 30 points. So to me, a really good start is going to be important for both clubs. I think coaching, I guess health-wise, the Bucks have the edge over the Nets, but the Bucks sort of remind me of the Raptors before they got Kawhi Leonard. They were a very good regular season team, but just couldn't get it done in the playoffs. Tonight is going to be put up or shut up time for the Milwaukee Bucks, because the last couple of years they've had a tremendous team and they just haven't been able to get it done in the postseason.
Yes, and I'm also looking at the stats from their last game where the Bucks won by 15, 104-89, and only 3 of their starters scored in double digits. You had Giannis with 30 and 17 boards. You got Chris Middleton with 38, 10, and 5, and Drew Holiday with 21, 8, and 5. But look at this. All the other 2 starters, PJ Tucker and Brook Lopez, they only scored a total of 11 points. And the bench didn't do as much as anything. So if you play a well-balanced game, you will see it. But if you just relegate everything else to the starters, then that's going to be trouble. They may look like they're a well-oiled machine and maybe play the full 48 minutes, but honestly, there's a reason why all these other players are on this team. Like, they have a role for something. Hopefully we see much of that tonight. And on top of that, the Bucks did lead by 7 at the end of the first quarter, and they didn't look back. Highest they scored was 33 points in the second quarter. But, the Nets didn't find, as much answers down the stretch too. And when you look at it, rebounding also played a big difference too. And the three-pointers, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm just seeing that until that game with the Clippers and Jabs last night, the three-pointers didn't make a key difference in any closeout game of the playoffs. It's just going straight to the basket because you don't want to take the big risk. Somebody gets the rebound, and then you're just left high and dry at the other end of the court.
If I was a betting man, which I'm not really, but once in a while, I would put my money on the Nets tonight, even though they're banged up. They're at home. 80% of the teams in the NBA usually win Game 7, and the Milwaukee Bucks haven't not proven to be able to get it done in the playoffs. So until the Bucks, it's like with the Clippers, until they actually do it, I'm going to stick with the Nets tonight. I think it'll be 110 to 106 Brooklyn.
I see this going probably a 7 to 8 point victory, if you ask me. And I think Brooklyn, they provide more bench distribution than Milwaukee anyhow. So the way I see it, I'm going to have to go with you and see that Brooklyn will punch their tickets into the Eastern Conference Finals, and they'll most likely have home court advantage because they are the 2 seed.
That's true. And I was just putting on my ticker here. The Clippers were 0-8 old time with a chance to clinch a conference final appearance. So, and they lost those games by an average of 14.9 points. So that's a big monkey off their backs, because that, even though that was in the past, it still gets in the players' heads. And now they've proven they can do it when they need to.
And it removes the most odious statement in the world that the Clippers couldn't advance to the conference finals. An interesting point, too, since it's going to be Phoenix and the Clippers. The last time they went head-to-head was in 2006 in the second round. And that was the Clippers' big-time chance to go to the conference finals. But how are you going to stop Steve Nash and the Suns at that point, honestly? So this is their first get-out in 15 years. So obviously there may be a little bit of history into that. But at the end of the day, both of these clubs, they're looking to go to the NBA Finals. Suns for the first time since 93 with Barkley, Marley, and Oliver Miller, along with Kevin Johnson. And for the Clippers, they got a lot riding on them, and they got a lot, to look forward to come Sunday afternoon.
I was going to say the Suns haven't been in the Western Conference Final since 2010 when they lost to Phil Jackson and Kobe and the Lakers in 6 games.
And Kobe took over in Game 6. He was phenomenal, but there's no better closeout player in that generation than Kobe Bryant.
And here's another little stat, too. The Clippers also became the first NBA team to erase a 20-plus point deficit in a series-clinching win over the past 25 seasons.
Now, let's see a team in the NBA Finals do that, because I think the closest anyone's got to that sort of deficit was the Spurs back in 2003. It was Game 6. They were down by like 15 points or something of the sort in the fourth quarter, and they erased it, and they clinched the championship. But back to 2021, anything could happen in the NBA playoffs. Nobody expect Terrence Mann to step up. Nobody expect Chris Paul to explode against Denver in that series-clinching Game 2. But now things have changed. We're seeing people that were seldom heard in articles or, on the mixtapes stepping it up. And that's what I like about the NBA. It's not the stars all the time. It's about the people that are ready, willing, and committed to make sure they'll do whatever they can to make their team win the championship.
And look at these teams that are left. The Sixers haven't won a championship since 1983. The Milwaukee Bucks since 1971. I don't think the Brooklyn Nets have won an NBA championship since they were in the ABA, I believe, in the late 70s. And then the Atlanta Hawks have never won an NBA. Maybe they did as the St. Louis Hawks.
Yes, as the St. Louis Hawks in 1958. They did it against the Boston Celtics. Russell had a major injury, which really, turned the tables on for them. And Bob Pettit, he just went off that night in the series clinching game. And on top of that, Brooklyn Brooklyn has been to the finals, obviously, but they're one of the few ABA teams that hasn't won it all. They've made it in 02, lost to the Lakers in a sweep. 03, lost to the Spurs in 6.
Yep.
The Pacers also made the finals, but they lost to the Lakers in 6 in 2000. And the Nuggets still remain as the team from the former ABA to have not made the NBA finals yet.
So, you know what? This is kind of refreshing because for so many years it was like the Bulls, the Lakers, the Celtics, the Spurs.
Yes.
And this year you've got a bunch of new teams, new teams. A lot of them haven't won championships. So I kind of find this playoffs this year kind of refreshing because you got some, what's the word I'm looking for? New blood in the NBA playoffs.
And new title contenders, too. This reminds me of 2011 when the Mavericks won their first championship. You have somebody that's going to win the championship either for the first time or for the first time in a long time. Bucks haven't won it since Lou Alcindor, or should I say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 71. And you have the Phoenix Suns, who have been in the NBA Finals, had tough teams, but could not capitalize on the situation. So either way, somebody's going to win a championship, and it's going to feel so sweet at the final buzzer.
Definitely. And now I was going to get on to the Sixers Hawks series. Last night, did you get a chance to see any of that Game 6 in Atlanta at the Phillips Arena?
I saw some of it, and again, this series, never ceases to amaze me. And I want to go back a couple of games, if you will, because I thought this could have been the be-all to end-all for the series. This is Game 4 we're talking about. I thought Atlanta did a good job shutting down Embiid because he didn't even get a field goal in the second half. Although I thought it was a sloppy finish to the game, it ended up with Philly getting 12 turnovers for the entire game. Sixers backcourt, they carried the game in the second half. And get this, Chris, 56 points from the backcourt compared to the 44 points from the front court because they scored 100. And 38 of those 56 points came from the starting backcourt of Seth Curry, Korkmaz, and Ben Simmons. And I found that very interesting. And, the way the NBA is going these days, they're looking for a more guard-oriented role and guard-oriented teams. Check that for the Philadelphia 76ers, although they lost. And I thought on the other end, the Hawks' young core, they had to tighten up in the clutch, but they were able to do that a game later. Transition game wasn't there. And the Hawks killed it on the boards. And I thought Clint Capella would never get a big break in the NBA when he got traded from the Rockets. But boy, does he prove me wrong. He ended up with 13 rebounds. But there was a lack of awareness on the final play. However, the Hawks were rebounded in Game 5. And now you look at Game 6, it was very interesting because I was very disappointed at both of these clubs. Horrendous at the free throw line. And
I was going to say.
They were so, honestly, they were garbage. You could leave them out to stink at your curb the next day and you would still smell it. But Atlanta was like 5th in free throw percentage, and Philly, I guess it was expected because they were 20th overall in the whole season.
Yeah. But at the end of the game, they did go 7 for 8, and then that helped. But you're right, there was a lot of missed free throws between both these teams, and that can make a difference at the end of a game between a win or loss. So we're going to see what happens tomorrow night, but that's going to be critical too, is those free throws from the charity stripe, because every point matters, especially in a playoff game. And I think Philadelphia needs to work on it, and so does Atlanta, because I think it could be decided by a missed free throw, possible.
Absolutely. Well, you got to thank Tobias Harris for helping Philadelphia down the stretch too, and I thought Embiid, scoring-wise, he was consistent quarter by quarter. But regardless of who comes out of this series, they'll have to deal with one of the top 2 teams in points per game. Milwaukee, 120 points. Brooklyn, almost 119 points per game. So you have that, and you have to be very consistent down the clutch, because if you're not consistent down the clutch, you may be out of a spot for a team.
I was going to say, to me, one of the key players last night was Seth Curry, especially with the 3 ball and hitting some big shots. To me, he was important. And Tobias Harris, the former Piston who was traded to the Clippers in the break Griffin trade a few years ago, was solid as well. And Joe Embiid was as well. But I think one player that needs to step up his game for Game 7 is Ben Simmons. This is also another big game. It's like the Milwaukee Bucks have to prove it. the Philadelphia Sixers as well. The Sixers and the Bucks, the last couple of years have had great regular season teams, but they haven't gotten it done in the playoffs. So this is actually shut up for the Philadelphia 76ers tomorrow as well, because they have the young core in place, and they've changed coaches, got rid of Brett Brown, brought in Doc Rivers, who won a championship with the Celtics in '08. And if they don't get the job done tomorrow night in Philadelphia, you can't really blame the coach. They've already switched it. I think if they lose tomorrow night, there's going to be some more changes in Philadelphia with the player personnel.
Yeah, somebody has to go if they can't capitalize on this, because this whole series has been a roller coaster. And if there's one word to describe Doc Rivers' coaching, is discipline. 100% discipline. Honestly, Seth Curry is having a breakout series as far as I'm concerned. Even though in the losses, he would just come on and just start popping up threes. And honestly, I thought, back then, if you get those string of threes going on, it's like you got something going on. But Seth Curry, if he doesn't get a lot of credit after this series, then seriously, people, you got to turn on the TV and watch this guy, because the way he picks his spots out, yeah, it's just like his brother, Steph Curry. But you know what? He's been the one that's been carrying the Sixers backcourt as far as I'm concerned. And yes, Ben Simmons need to get a move on, because if Joel Embiid's starting to score consistently yet again, then you need to have that 1-2 punch in there and Ben Simmons and just dominate, not only in scoring, but on the boards too.
And I was just saying on my ticker here, they also got a huge boost off the bench from Tyrese Maxey, who had 29 minutes and tallied 16 points and 7 rebounds. And that was important last night as well.
Well, rebounding is a huge difference. And you know what? We're seeing all these players, again, who has played for only a few years, they're in their rookie year, and they're just stepping up. And when it also comes to Doc Rivers, he sees potential in all these young guys, or the young bloods, as most people would call them. And what other coach doesn't? Honestly, Doc Rivers has been around the league for a long time as a player for Atlanta during the Dominique Wilkins Spud Webb era, and he was able to get himself in the upper echelon of the NBA coaches too. So it isn't going to be up to the coaches for Game 7. It's going to be up to the players. And I hope I see a new face step in and take care of Game 7. Like, as much as I love to see Seth Curry and Embiid and Trae Young and Kevin Huerter dominate, you need a ringer from the bench to step up and get some enthusiasm going on, because that's what makes a good series clinching game. And especially in the world of sports, no two words are important than Game 7.
Oh, yeah, and I'm looking forward to it, definitely. And I was just putting on some stats here. Seth Curry in the Hawks series, 21.8 points per game, 61.5 field goals, and 59.6 from three-point range. That's just amazing. He is really coming into his own.
Who's going to put the fire out? I don't know. Philadelphia is known for letting freedom ring, and you'd better let Seth Curry in there and let him ring up some threes, or else, what else will happen? But I'm surprised, because originally I thought Seth Curry was going to be one of those bench players that will get some decent time, and through time he'll get his points per games up for a minute. But you know what? He's starting, and that brings up a big boost for their backcourt too. So, and he 60% from 3-point range. My goodness.
Pretty well. Yeah. And just like the other game tonight, Game 7, I think both teams, a strong start is needed. You do not want to get behind. Atlanta does not want to fall behind 20-25 points. They won 2 games back-to-back, falling behind 20-25 points. But I don't think they want to do that in Game 7 in Philly. So I think for the Sixers, good start, and they get the fans involved early, because the Philly fans can get real loud and rowdy. So to me, and as for Atlanta, you want to have a strong start as well on the road, and you want to keep those Philly fans quiet. So I think that first quarter is going to be – I think it's going to be really critical for both teams to have a good first quarter.
And to add up to your point, Chris, when it comes to a nice hot start, for both of these teams, no flashy stuff. I've seen the turnovers during the series. Let's bring it down a little bit. There's no need to do anything fancy. Let's leave it the teamwork. Let's leave it the discipline, because, again, there's going to be more young folks on the court than the veterans for most of the game. Let's get that straight right now. And they're going to try to find a way to make a name of themselves. And why not? It's Game 7. But stick to the basic stuffs. You don't need no flashy alley-oops or whatnot. You need to get down and dirty, go for the boards, get a nice transition game going on, and don't hesitate to find an extra pass right down low. Don't get into the 3-point rage straight away, because that's what both of these clubs are going to be looking for tonight.
Okay. And something else, too. Trae Young has scored or assisted on 536 points this postseason, 53.6 points per game. According to Elias Sports, where I got this from, that's the most ever by a player through his first 10 career playoff games, which is outstanding.
Well, honestly, Trae Young has carried the Hawks on his back since he got there in the NBA a couple of years ago. And now he's really showing the whole NBA universe what he's made of, especially in the postseason, because nothing matters more than your performance down to the postseason. That's how people will perceive you, as one of the brightest players and one of the most up-and-coming players, or one of those players that will just do well in the regular season and just turn into pumpkins by the postseason. But he has a future. Give him 4 or 5 years, he could probably take the Hawks to the NBA Finals, because he's got a good core with him anytime he's on the court.
Okay, I was going to say, and what are your feelings for tonight's game, and then game 1 of the West Final tomorrow, and then the Sixers-Hawks? Let's get Aaron Sanders' predictions on these games coming up.
Well, for the folks watching there, don't be surprised if you hear this. I believe Brooklyn's going to take the series because they're playing with a vengeance. They got injuries beyond belief, and on top of that, you got a red-hot Kevin Durant. No question about it. And plus, they are doing well in distributing the ball. So that's why I think they're going to make the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, let's go into tomorrow, Game 7 between the Hawks and Sixers. I think the Hawks are going to play spoiler and knock down the Sixers, if you ask me. I think Capella's rebounding has been outstanding. Trae Young's performance has been great. Like, at first, I thought he was a very selfish player, because then again, if you're a young player, if you're a rookie, you want to stand out and make a name for yourself, like what LaMelo and Zion has done over the past few years. But this guy, he's maturing right before our very eyes. And he's, I think, in his 3rd year, if I'm not mistaken, 3rd or 2nd year. And he's just doing all of that. And plus, not only he's got a good backcourt, he also has a good front court, and that brings it all together. So we could see a Nets and Hawks conference finals. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, I see the Clippers taking care of business and beating the Suns by, I want to say, the 10 to 15 point window. They just got more versatility and the height advantage, beside them. And I believe, they'll take the home court advantage away from Phoenix and over in the Phoenix Suns arena too.
I'm going with, I agree with you on the Clippers, the Nets. The other one, I'd say Atlanta, but you know what? I'm going to go with the 76ers. I think they're going to finally get the job done tomorrow night, but I won't be shocked if Atlanta wins.
Well, they've been able to provide some key moments in this series too. So that's why I said, they're a little more tighter down in the clutch. I'm not going to say they're a well-oiled machine in the clutch, because obviously they still got some things to take care of, tighten up, especially the turnovers for both of these clubs. But I still see the Hawks going back at it. And if they do win, it'll be their first trip to the conference finals since 2015, where they went up against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay. And before I let you go, just a couple more pieces of NBA news I wanted to talk to you about. The Celtics, I guess, traded Kemba Walker and the 16th pick in this year's draft to Oklahoma for Al Horford, who was with the Celtics before, Moses Brown, and a 2023 second-round pick is announced by Brad Stevens, the new Celtics GM and president. What's your take on that trade with Oklahoma and Boston?
It's a pretty big move from Brad Stevens, and that's how you get down and dirty. It was one of his first assignments on the job as GM of the Celtics, giving up the role to be the head coach, which, of course, that has to be filled in very soon. But nonetheless, I think Kemba Walker going to OKC, it's going to be very interesting, because I've seen in the last few years the way OKC has played out. They needed a guard to help them control the offense and the defense, and they got a very decent front court too. All you need is the leadership. And who else to provide that leadership than Kemba Walker? And on top of that, Al Horford's coming back to Boston. And then you have Moses Brown, and you got the extra round draft pick. So if you ask me, Celtics are starting their rebuilding phase, and hopefully in a few years' time, we'll see them either back in the playoffs or do a deeper playoff run.
They're still going to be looking for a head coach now that Stevens has stepped into the front office. Any candidates that you could see taking the Celtics head coaching job for next year?
How about we take a look at the free agency pool as far as the coaches are concerned? Stan Van Gundy, out. On top of that, you got another good coach that's out too, and Terry Stotts. I think I could see Terry Stotts being the coach of the Celtics because, he promoted that great leadership once again. And you know what? Instead of just getting Damian Lillard the ball all the time, he knew that he could go for a nice 1-2 punch in the front court too. So, you have that great responsibility and trust in Terry Stotts. And I thought that the Celtics had that when they had Isaiah Thomas a few years ago. So I'm like, any coach that goes to the Celtics, they know that they're going to a well-disciplined club, that they're not going to take no guff, and they know they're going to put the team first before themselves as well. So I hope to see Terry Stotts in there, but at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we see an assistant coach along the way, become the coach for the Celtics.
I would think of maybe Rick Carlisle, who just resigned with Dallas Mavericks. And I believe Rick Carlisle played for the Celtics in the 80s, I believe.
And he won the 86 ring with them, one of the finest teams in NBA history.
Yes.
They only lost one game on their famed parquet floor over at Boston Garden. Yes.
They were dominant. So that's my gut feeling, just the timing of him resigning with Dallas. And that's who I think will be the next head coach of the Celtics, but we'll see.
It's going to be interesting for the Celtics during the offseason because I don't think I've heard much buzz from the Celtics in the offseason in years. I think since when the big three dissolved, like Garnett, Pierce, and Ray Allen. So it's going to be interesting to see who's going to fill in that void and who's going to bring on some wonders in 2021, 2022.
Okay. And my other NBA news is Charlotte Hornets. LaMelo Ball was named NBA Rookie of the Year. Do you agree with that?
For years, I wasn't a fan of the Ball family, LaMelo and their father and whatnot, because I always thought, they're getting too ahead of themselves. But the way they performed it, for all you folks out there, I give up, you win. He deserves Rookie of the Year. He's got great awareness, great ball movement, no question about it. That's why he's been on the highlight reel. And I think in 2 or 3 years down the road, if he brings up his points a little bit more, he could be a more sturdy leader for the Charlotte Hornets. And again, Charlotte's one of those teams which nobody would expect to go very far because they have a young core. But give them a few years, huh?
Definitely. And speaking of that, before I let you go, the Detroit Pistons have 2 rookies on the all-rookie team, Sakwa Bay and Isaiah Stewart. I am a Pistons fan. I really think this team is heading in the right direction, and I think the Pistons next year could be a 7 or 8 seed in the East. Do you agree, yes or no, that they could be a playoff team next year?
Oh, no doubt. But no higher than 7 or 8. Let's get the record straight right there. And seeing the Pistons, the way they perform against these top caliber teams, like I saw a game where they went up against the Dallas Mavericks, and they were at Little Caesars Arena a few months ago. And I thought they had what it took to go up against these championship contending teams. However, they have to find some way to work real hard in the second half and not slip up a lead. And that the same could go for San Antonio, but that's for another episode. But Detroit, they've always had that potential. They've had that potential over the last decade, even with Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin and everybody else that was part of the Pistons red, white, and blue. But at the end of the day, if you can't finish strong, it's going to affect your record. Your win-loss is no question about it. So I just see them, like what you just said, in 7th or 8th, but no higher than that. And they will shock the NBA if they do make the playoffs in the next few years.
Because I do think they're headed in the right direction because they got Troy Weaver from Oklahoma as a GM. Dwayne Casey is excellent with younger players, and I think there's a foundation starting to build there as well. So my expectations as a fan is this team should be, I'm hoping around 500 next year and battling for a playoff spot.
Absolutely. And, they were in the playoffs a few years ago, but they had the misfortune to go up against Cleveland before they got swept.
Yep.
But anyhow, that's out of the way. The Pistons, they got a bright future. And we're going to see a whole lot of rookies and second and third year players dominate and eventually take the captain role, when that time comes. So don't sleep on the Pistons. They're going to make a big impact in the Eastern Conference and, will intimidate some teams.
And here's something else for you before I let you go. June 19th, 1990, the Pistons win back-to-back championships, beating Portland 3 straight times in Portland to win in 5 games, which was amazing because Portland stole home court from the Pistons in Game 2 at the Palace to go 1-1. And then the Pistons did something that I don't think any NBA team ever had done, win 3 straight road games to win a championship for their second straight championship in 1990, which was 31 years ago, which is hard to believe. And also, the Chicago Bulls on June 19th, 1984 drafted third overall Michael Jordan from North Carolina, and that worked out pretty good for the Bulls.
Yeah, I think I heard Michael Jordan about once or twice down the stretch. I mean, franchise player right there. And on top of that, on top of the 31 years since the Pistons went back-to-back, you got to pay extreme kudos to Vinnie Johnson, the microwave. If he didn't make that shot, that series would have gone back to the Palace, and it was also the very last game produced by the staff over at the NBA on CBS. Because we all know a year later, we heard Round Ball Rock for the first time, and NBC took over. I miss them doing the games, honestly.
Same with CBS and NBC, yes. And I was going to say, I definitely grew up with CBS, but Vinnie Johnson, I think hit the winning shot was 0.7 of a second, I believe. And and he didn't get enough credit, man. You had Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, the Palace guards, and Vinnie Johnson. And even those guys said Vinnie Johnson, if he was a regular guard, he could have been in the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame too.
Oh, by all means. And he knew how to heat up at those good moments. And we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Bill Laimbeer down in the front court too, because looking back at his highlights, I'm like, wow, we got a big man that is not only physical, but can knock down some long range shots as well. So those Pistons won't be forgotten, and they're etched into history as far as I'm concerned, because it's hard going back to back, whether if you're in the NBA, the MLB, the NHL, or the NFL.
It should have been 3, Pete, but the Lakers stole Game 7 of the '88 finals. And that I still can't watch that finals to this day, because that phantom call on Bill Laimbeer against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar changed the whole series. And to me, the Pistons should have been the first team since the Celtics to win 3 in a row before the Bulls did. I'm still bitter about that. But we got a little revenge by upsetting the Lakers in 04, because the 04 Lakers were with Shaq and Kobe and Phil, were supposed to crash the going to work Pistons, and the Pistons really should have swept them, but Kobe pulled out one game. So that NBA Finals was a little bit of revenge, but the '88 loss still stings, even more than the '05 loss to your Spurs.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing about 04. I wanted the Pistons to win because I was still bitter about how Derek Fisher got that shot off with 0.4 seconds left in the semifinals. So I was glad. And I'll even say this too. I think the 05 finals was the last physical and defensive NBA finals before a new generation came along, like Dwayne Wade, LeBron, and Kobe stepped up. You're not going to see a bigger physical contest than the Pistons and Spurs in 05, because they were at their peak at the time. And, not a lot of people give that series or any series that the Spurs were in this decade or in this millennium credit. And same with the Pistons.
Yes.
And they also went to the Pistons, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals 6 straight times.
Which is outstanding. And Rasheed Wallace was saying he liked Rick Carlisle, the coach, or Flip Saunders. But he said if Larry Brown had stayed with the Pistons, we would have won at least 1 or 2 more championships.
Well, honestly, they went from Carlisle to Brown and then to Saunders. And I thought, Larry Brown just staying there for a couple of years, that's a very risky move, on him and, for the Pistons too. But they were equally good after 2005, but we knew there was something different going on, because they lost Ben Wallace too to Chicago, which was one of the most daring and one of the most not so popular moves with the fan base. So all you had left was Prince, Billups, Rasheed Wallace, and you even had Chris Webber in the mix, I think, to have his career go full circle, because he did play at Michigan. But we won't mention what he did in the Final Four decades ago.
Nope, definitely. But anyways, Aaron, I'm going to let you go because I know you want to watch that game at 8:30 tonight. I'm going to have a cold beer, and I'm looking forward to watching the Bucks and the Nets. And I'm looking forward to the Sixers and Hawks tomorrow at 8, and the Suns Clippers at 3:30. So lots of basketball on tonight and tomorrow, and it should be interesting to see what happens by Sunday night for the Eastern Conference Finals.
Everybody watching, and before I go, can I say a couple of things before you let me go? Just a quick thank you. And once again, we have the Save the Barn thing. I think I said this to you last
go
time
ahead.
I was here, Chris.
Go
once
ahead.
again, for all the OHL fans, the Spitfire fans, and whatnot, and anybody that came to Windsor, you know, the Windsor Arena is very historic. It's been around for almost 100 years, and the city of Windsor is doing everything they can for the old barn not to have a date with the wrecking ball. So if you're able to sign the petition online, it's called Save the Barn. You know, that would be great. And hopefully we could name this maybe a local landmark, a provincial landmark, even a national landmark, because a lot of history has happened and there's a lot of memories that's shared. And hopefully in years to come, we'll have more memories to talk about when it comes to the old barn. And I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to my father in heaven. And I want to give a shout out to a very special person that, you know, that's been very good. And she's been waiting to hear a shout out from me. She still, can you believe, Chris, she made 3 3-pointers, though she debates saying this, like, I made 4 and all that other stuff. But I want to get the record straight. It is 3. And she's a fan of your podcast, and she's watching this right now. So you know who you are.
Well, thank you for watching. And like I said, podcast is only as good as its guest. And I've been very lucky the last 6 months to have guys from the NFL, ESPN, yourself. And actually, I have the assistant coach of the Windsor Express coming on my next show Wednesday night at 7:00, Neil Foreman, to come on and talk. Neil's going to come on and talk some Windsor Express and about his coaching career.
Well, Neil is phenomenal, and you're going to have a great time interviewing him. So I can't wait till Wednesday night to watch it.
Well, thank you for watching, and I hope, and you did get my podcast shirt okay in the mail, right?
Yes, I did, and I was so tight for time today, I forgot to pull it out and show you.
Okay, no problem. Like I said, I'm getting 30 minutes taken off of my new design. It's just going to be live with CDP because most of my interviews are usually about an hour. So I figure, you know what? Just live with CDP. That way there's no time constraints.
It makes a whole lot of sense, too, because you never know. You might have a good interview subject and you want to go on for more than that. And the way this is going, I see this going for an hour and maybe 2.
Like I said, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, like I said, and talking some NBA hoops. And I'm really looking forward to having you back on again in the future. Maybe we can do an NBA final podcast in a couple of weeks if you have some time as well.
Oh, I do. There's no question about it. This is the start of a great NBA podcast. And what better way to do it than do it where everything's right down the stretch? You got the conference finals and the finals. It's going to be a dynamic ride.
And I want to give a shout out to the Canadian League Basketball League. The Guelph Nighthawks have called me back to volunteer. So I'm going to be doing half their home games this year at the Sleeman Center. So in the next few weeks, I'm actually going to be around in a basketball arena again at the Sleeman Center for the first time in a year and a half. And it'll be nice to be involved with that. And I'd like to get more involved with the NBL of Canada as well and promote both leagues as well.
Oh, yes. Right on. See, I knew you're going to go back to the CEBL.
Well, like I said, they gave me an opportunity, and it's good basketball. Same with the NBL. And my friend Karen, who's in London watching this, she's going to be hopefully going back to games in November for the NBL of Canada as well with the London Lightning and stuff. So
I'll tell you, the Budweiser Garden is going to be much louder with fans like her back in the seats come the new season.
Definitely. So, anyways, Aaron, I'm going to let you go because, like I said, we got Game 7 coming up. We got Tampa Bay and the Islanders, and then we got the Nets and Bucks. So it's going to be a good sports net for both of us.
Absolutely. And let's get it on. Let's watch it now.
Okay, Aaron, we'll definitely keep in touch. And again, thank you for coming on my podcast tonight. Appreciate it.
And thank you for allowing me to do those shadows. Those people mean the world to me, and it means a lot that I'm able to, sound off on my opinions on round ball, especially with you. Can't wait for the next episode.
Definitely, for sure. All right, Aaron, have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Go Nets. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my podcast tonight, the NBA Final Six podcast, since there's 2 teams left in the West, Phoenix and the Clippers, but we still got the Eastern Conference finals to be determined. So, like I said, tonight you got the Sunday night at 8 o'clock, Sixers and Hawks Game 7 from Philadelphia, and then tonight you got tonight at 8:30 from the Barclays Center, Bucks and Nets in Game 7. So I'm looking forward to it. Should be some really good basketball on tonight and tomorrow night as well. And please, guys, check out my friend Aaron on Twitter. Aaron Sanders, who's the online streaming voice of the Windsor Express, is on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and you can also follow Aaron on Twitter at @SandersWindsor. Okay, if you guys want to follow him, he's a really good guy. He knows his CBL basketball, the NBL basketball, the NBA. So please do that as well. I'm looking forward to being involved with the CBL Golf Nighthawks again, starting July nights. It'll be nice to actually get to a sporting event for the first time in a year and a half, and first time in 16 months back at the Slayman Center. And hopefully I'll be back with Rogers TV this end of summer, early fall with the Guelph Storm games as well. Anyways, guys, I've done 4 podcasts this week, so I just want to say thank you to my guests this week. Ken Daniels from Bally Sports, the Red Wings longtime TV announcer, came on Monday. I want to say thank you to Neil White, Rogers TV producer, and a guy who gave me a chance to do the Storm games from Rogers TV on Wednesday. Thank you for coming on. And like I said last night, I want to thank last night's guests for coming on as well, and Aaron as well. So I've had a really good week with my podcast and stuff like that. So anyways, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to ask before I head out. Let's see some comments before I go. Trevor, hi. Let's see, good guest, good host. Yep. Let's see, Trevor, good host. Who's going to be the NBA champion? I think the Brooklyn Nets. I think the Brooklyn Nets or the Clippers, so we'll see. And let's see, Mark Richardson. Hi, Mark. Thanks for watching as always. Good show. I really appreciate that. I think it's going to be a Brooklyn Clippers NBA Finals, and I'm going to go with the Nets over the Clippers. But we'll see what happens. So enjoy the games tonight, guys. Bucks Nets 8:30 tonight. And then Sunday, we've got the Clippers and Suns Western Final at 3:30. And then at 8 o'clock tomorrow night from Philadelphia, Hawks Sixers Game 7. So it's winner go home time in the NBA playoffs. So anyways, guys, just before I go, I just want to say thank you to everybody watching live on my YouTube channel under Chris Pame, Twitter at Chris D. Pame, and Facebook live streaming. And guys, if you guys want to watch or listen to my podcast later on audio, 30 Minutes Live with CDP, the audio version is on Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, and Spotify. So you can, so I'm on live for 3 platforms, and audio version is on these ones as well. So anyways, guys, like I said, if anybody has any more questions, please feel free, or I'm going to call it a night because I'm looking forward to watching some basketball in the Stanley Cup playoffs tonight. Islanders, Tampa Bay, Game 4 from the Nassau Coliseum. To me, it's a must-win for the Islanders. You do not want to fall behind 3-1 to the Stanley Cup champion Lightning and have to play Game 5 in Tampa Bay down 3-1. So tonight is a must-win for the New York Islanders. To me, it's like a Game 7. So anyways, guys, like I said, I'm going to call it a show. But I just want to say thank you to everybody that's come on my podcast this week. And I was going to say Jake Marshall. I apologize. So this week I've had 4 shows while working midnights. And I want to say Ken Daniels, thank you. Neil White, thank you. Jake Marshall from Bill's Mafia and Aaron Sanders from the Windsor Express for coming on. 4 podcasts, 4 great guests. And I look forward to my next podcast. Guys, my next podcast will be Wednesday, June 23rd at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 on the West Coast time. My guest will be Neil Foreman, the assistant coach of the Windsor Express of the NBL Canada. I'm looking forward to talking to Neil about being an assistant coach with the Windsor Express and his involvement with the National Basketball League and his coaching career with high school basketball in the Windsor area. So again, this Wednesday, June 23rd, 7 o'clock, Neil Foreman, the assistant coach of the Windsor Express, will be my guest on 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Guys, I'm going to call it a night, but thank you all again watching this on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and again on my audio version, which is down on the ticker as well. So anyways, guys, enjoy the games tonight and tomorrow, and we'll talk to you Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on 30 Minutes Live with CDP.